Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Pilot Lawyer Podcast. Thank you for your attention while this important legal information is reviewed. What you hear should not replace consultation with an attorney and should not be considered advice for your situation. On behalf of the Pilot Lawyer and your entire crew, it's our pleasure to have you aboard.
Welcome, aviators, to the Pilot Lawyer Podcast with us, the Ison brothers at the Ison Law Firm. We're here to help pilots, those that want to become pilots, navigate the FAA medical certification process. As we say around the office, if you don't laugh, you cry. And for the next 30 minutes, we hope to bring you the lighter side of what can otherwise be a frustrating process. So whether you're laughing at us or with us, join us, brothers, as we discuss the fascinating world of FAA medical certification. Fabulous. Fabulous.
We've done 14 of those now.
And we'll have a complete podcast. Fabulous. Bring me 14 right now.
So, here we are.
Just waiting to die.
It feels like a low energy Wednesday.
Feels like a Friday on a Thursday.
And it's only Wednesday.
Let me ask you this. If I were to pick up a hobby, what do you think it should be?
Weight loss.
Tried that. Wasn't interested.
Well, what kind of hobbies interest you?
Well, I like things that have to do with, like, geography and navigation. Although I don't like the sense of being lost. How about, who are these people that are getting panicky about being lost? I know people that are just
Related to people.
yeah, maybe panic stricken. But how am I going to get there? You've got satellites picking you up from outer space, telling you how to get there. This is the bet you cannot. I don't see how you get lost these days. How do you get lost?
Well, we are also related to somebody who got so lost, they finally decided.
Literally, stop it, Coke. On the table.
You know where this is going.
For instructions, they didn't even know the town that we're from. Yeah. It's a pretty big town.
But that was before GPS.
Going to the equivalent across the street. Got so lost that when he finally stopped to ask for directions, they said, I ain't never heard of Lakeland.
Where are you from?
Which, technically, that was in Lakeland, right? So it's like, were those people just egging him on?
They had to have been.
That's part of the story. I don't know.
Yeah.
Where did he
Clear it
go?
up. That's what I'm trying to.
He was still in Lakeland?
He was in Deerbrook.
No. I think he ended up in like Lithia.
Yeah. He was going to Deerbrook.
Oh, ended up. That's right. He was going to Lakeland within Lakeland. He was in Lakeland.
Yeah.
He was
going to Lakeland.
And ended up 45 minutes away.
How's that happen?
Well, now, to be fair, I've gotten lost in Deerbrook myself.
It wouldn't happen. I'm not going
tonight.
It wouldn't happen today. With GPS.
No. That's not when I was at high school 30 years ago.
Getting lost, I just don't think is a thing.
Speak for yourself.
I don't think it should be a thing anymore. Even when you're flying or using a boat. How do you get lost?
Well, it raises an interesting question. How does the navigational requirements intersect with cognitive functioning?
That's interesting and a great segue to today's topic. But before we actually get into the topic, what's going on with the Bermuda Triangle?
Need more vamping.
Yeah. What's going on with the Bermuda Triangle? What happens down there? Is that a real thing?
Magnets.
I went to the Turks and Caicos.
What?
On a cruise.
You went
Years ago. He went.
You had a moment of pleasure?
A moment of well, I got sick on the cruise, and so it was kind of miserable.
I remember. I heard all about it.
Went to the Turks and Caicos and went on a little ATV tour, and the tour guide, well, I have no reason to dispute the authenticity and veracity of these comments.
He was barefoot, smoking a cigarette.
I mean,
He knew he was not bad guy.
said that we were at the tip of the Bermuda Triangle, at some little point in the island.
Which tip?
How did it feel?
What are the tips? The pointy end.
Yeah.
It was interesting. It was just kind of looking out into a void.
It is an interesting thing.
I didn't feel weird.
It's the first time in a while, other than being sick. Well, why don't you look it up on...
What does that got to do with anything? Why?
We were talking about the navigation, the GPS, and what with us being so close to the Bermuda Triangle, I thought it was an interesting discussion point. So, to bring it all back full circle, I'm not going to have a hobby. This is my hobby.
Well, you hear that? That's how dedicated he is to your case, listener.
Okay, give me the Bermuda Triangle. Give me a brief rundown. While we're waiting for Alex, go ahead and talk about today's topic. FAA medical certification following a poor performance, let's just say poor performance, or negative results, less unfavorable, aeromedically significant performance on a neuropsychological evaluation. It's one we see quite a bit. Just cut it right in when you get that.
Let me cut to the guano. Is there any coming back from a poor neuropsych evaluation?
I see it quite frequently. So let's just caveat everything by saying there are going to be people, unfortunately, who just can't. They maybe have a cognitive deficiency. Okay? I would say, though, the cases I've seen, a number.
Got breaking news here. The Bermuda Triangle is just a myth.
A myth. Tell that to people who have gone lost.
Here's the deal. According to the United States,
find them. This is a big joke.
According to the U.S. Coast Guard in NOAA, your government,
they're big cover-up.
They say there's nothing unusually dangerous about the Bermuda Triangle compared to any other heavily traveled region on this here globe. I said globe.
Well,
insurance companies, and this is all the proof you need right here. Insurance companies don't charge higher premiums for it if you're traveling through it or you live in it. That's
there you go.
All right,
there is
that
the
sums
truth.
it up. Don't need no government.
Well, so there are possibilities, like in Alex's case, where cognitive deficiencies just, it is what it is.
Correct.
I would say, though, that those are fairly far and few between. I would say the case where I think that is legitimately going to stick, I've not seen that stick with a denial that often. That being said, what is the regulation relevant to this question, Christopher? What's the relevant regulation to cognitive?
You're looking at 67.109, 67.10. I about my drink. I about choked out my drink. Everything I just said.
He's doing it all wrong.
67.107, 67.207, 67.307, and those are copy and paste pretty much for first, second, third class medical certification standards.
What subsection?
C.
As in Charlie?
C. It basically says that the applicant should not have a history of neurosis, personality disorder, or other mental condition that, based on case history and the appropriate qualified medical judgment, would allow the federal air surgeon to make a finding that the airman or the applicant would be unsafe to operate an aircraft. That's the gist.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
So it's a discretionary standard.
That's right.
Which is a beautiful place to live if you're doing what we do.
It's like living in the Bermuda Triangle.
Because even if you have some form of cognitive deficiencies, the question is it aeromedically significant?
Is it a problem? There's a little bit of wiggle room.
Maybe you can be somewhat thick.
Well, I'm thick. Just in wrong place. Moving on. So, why would you need a neuropsych evaluation in the first place? That's the one you get asked.
Maybe you have a history of...
Let me back up. I'm going to be a guest on the Mayo... Unless they cut my episode.
They will.
I would be a guest on the Mayo Clinic's Clear Approach podcast. That episode will be coming out soon. I've already filmed it. Recorded it. All right? I already recorded it. Look for that episode soon if you'd like to see a more polished side of myself. That being said, their protocol for their podcast is way more like attention to detail driven than this. That was like going to ask you these questions, and when I'm done with your answer, I'm going to cut in with another question that is posed. So I'm not to give away how their sauce is made, but I guess my point here is that
this is stream of consciousness.
less rambling on their podcast.
Well, I mean, not to hold ourselves to the standard of Joe Rogan, which I don't think I've heard a whole podcast all the way through. I think
hours worth.
But I wonder how they do. I mean, it seems more back and forth, kind of a free spirit conversation.
We just had confirmation that our content is loved by those in the aviation community and not in the aviation community.
That's true.
We had a direct message from the first. Somebody found us on Facebook, sent us a message saying how much they're not even pilots. They have no interest in being pilots, and they listen religiously.
Bless their hearts.
Anyhow, let's figure this out. So if you have had a neuropsych evaluation, which could be for a number of reasons, could be for ADHD, substance dependence. I wouldn't say substance abuse. There's a lot of distinction between abuse and dependence and the protocol for those two different conditions. Substance dependence will require a neuropsych evaluation. Typically, a substance abuse determination wouldn't require a neuropsych evaluation, which is a little bit frustrating because I don't think a lot of AMEs get that right. I think they just see HIMSS program for any individual and they say, oh, you didn't need a neuropsych evaluation, whereas the substance abuse, that protocol typically doesn't require neuropsych evaluation. So ADHD, substance dependence, TB, traumatic brain injury, some of those cases require neuropsych evaluation.
What if you go down like the SSRI pathway?
Pathway, that's a good one. HIV is one.
What about having had a seizure? Did you ever say that?
I didn't say seizure. Nobody said seizure.
Yeah, but are there times when they could require
I guess perhaps. I guess if you were hard pressed.
Or some type of loss of consciousness. I guess TBI.
TBI is.
But still, I mean, we've had that.
There's a number of reasons you might need one. Or just like some vague reference to cognitive problems. We've seen that before. I'm just kind of woozy. In fact, I had a client once say the word woozy, and he called it woozy.
Woozy.
So you remember he's a little woozy.
Was he from New York?
Automatic.
Got to be from New York.
Yeah, the woodziness. That's it. Just saying woozy. Grounds for a question there. So let's say whether the FAA tells you to go do it or you do it proactively or whatever the case may be, you go and do a neuropsych evaluation and you don't do well. That's a situation where maybe your test results are off. You just didn't do well on the cog screen or whatever, and the neuropsychologist says,
are there various domains upon what you're going and what you're going to be tested?
Yeah, there's executive functioning, there's processing speed, there's memory, there's language.
So maybe you don't bomb it across the board.
Yeah, maybe you just don't do well.
It's just one domain that you're deficient in.
Correct.
That is cause for concern.
Yeah, if you're below average, significantly in one area, that's enough to kind of bomb it overall.
Bring the rest down.
That's right. Kind of like you with this.
With the podcast.
Wouldn't it seem like if you were that deficient in one domain but okay in the others that
it would bring you up?
Well, not that, but that it might be say, well, was this an accurate reading? How can you be so good in all these others? And
I think it's possible just to not. Maybe you're just better in other areas than you are in others.
Perhaps. Whereas, I mean, like if you were kind of borderline on everything else and bombed one area, well, that might just kind of be more indicative of the overall individual.
My motor skills of lifting fork to mouth are better than my motor skills for playing, classical guitar, for example. So it is a crazy thing. So
you can play classical gas.
No hands needed.
Or guitar.
So that being said, we're in a spot here. Let's say the neuropsych evaluation report goes to the So, like, for example, you sent the neuropsych evaluation makes it to the FAA. It's sort of a garbage in, garbage out thing, unfortunately, right? So if the neuropsych evaluation says, hey, this isn't good, you have aeromedically significant cognitive deficiencies, right? Or cognitive concerns that are going to cause a problem or may present greater risk to aviation safety, they're going to deny you under that regulation 67107 or 207 or 307C for essentially what they call cognitive deficiencies, most likely, right? So the question at that point becomes, what can you do next, if anything? Typically, we'll have individuals come to us thinking that all hope is lost, right? That they've had this unfavorable neuropsych evaluation. The FAA has denied them, and that's that. It's it. That's it. We're done. But allow me to lure you into a sense of hope that you may not have known you could even possess. Correct.
That's all well and swell.
It's possible to retest. So let me tell you this. I tell clients this.
You have to retest with the same neuropsych?
You're getting well ahead. Why you have to cough? Have you seen that video of Donald Trump? And he's doing like, it's like,
It was like during COVID, wasn't it? Like first term?
I don't know. We was with, who's that little
Secretary?
guy?
Like
He was
chief of staff or somebody. Someone coughing.
He was going to tell the story. So he's doing some ABC, pull it up, Alex, and play it into the mic. Some ABC, I think it's ABC, some interview. And he gives this beautiful answer. And then someone coughs in the background.
You need to go.
You need to get, he just gets furious. And then you see, have you seen the one video where he's like getting ready for the, there's like some interview and there's like a table next to him with a glass of water on it. And he says, okay, how does it look? And, he's got this, well, I don't like this table. Get this table out of here.
I've not seen this.
Bring the table back. Bring the table back. Take the water off. Leave the table. Bring the water back. Take the little thing on top of it off. It's like there's a lot goes into what it looks like on these.
There's a neurocognitive.
Due to my lack of Joe Rogan level infrastructure and technology at my disposal, I can't pull it up.
Jeez.
Because it's embedded in a whole bunch of different videos. Unless you want to listen to 2 minutes and 5 seconds of of people roasting 45/7.
I don't want that. All right, so where was I? Oh yeah, Alex was coughing. Oh, so here it is. I'll just.
At some point, I might, but at some point I hope they get it because it's a fantastic financial statement. It's a fantastic financial statement. And let's do that over. He's coughing in the middle of my answer.
Yeah, okay.
I don't like that,
When you're chief of staff.
If you're going to cough, please leave the room.
Get a shot of, and I'll come over here.
You just can't.
Just to change the shot.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Trump.
Okay, do you want to do that a little differently then?
Yeah, we just changed it.
Has your FAA medical certificate been denied? Are you concerned you may not be able to get a medical certificate from the FAA? Are you at risk for FAA action for failing to report your medical history appropriately? Call the pilot lawyer at 1-855-FAA-1215 to discuss your options for getting the FAA to issue your medical certificate and get you flying. We are happy to evaluate your case and discuss with you a plan for presenting your case to the AME or the FAA. Aviation law is all we do, nothing else.
So
I've worked with people like that. It's it's unfortunate when you got a cough or something. I was once in a new client meeting when we were doing personal injury, and we were all sitting there, and I had a pen in my hand, and thinking thing slipped while I was writing, fell to the ground. And afterwards, Chris, what are you dropping pens in the middle of this meeting? I mean, I'm trying to lay in this case, and you're over here dropping pens. There's another time when we came in, and I took a seat at a spot where I wasn't supposed to sit. The head of the table. It was something stupid. And afterwards, I get my butt chewed out for where I sat. What's the point?
The crazy thing is, eating at the dinner table, our whole lives, our dad sat at the head of the table. I don't get that at the table. I sit on the side.
I'm lucky to sit.
It's some sort of alpha dog type thing. It's some sort of personality, cognitive concern.
I think we used to sit at the dinner table as kids. Like when we were eating, everyone was sitting at the dinner table. Nowadays,
Stand over the sink.
literally, I stand over the counter. The kids sit at the counter, and
Sad life.
I said to see one.
I mean, we're
there was
together,
absolutely no glare on the TV, and there was a perfect place to put my drink. I mean, like, it was the perfect spot. So,
So what I tell clients quite often is that it's like an X-ray. Now, I don't know if this is a good metaphor.
I'm going to tell you it's not, but go ahead.
What are you talking about? It's like an X-ray, right? So if you have a broken bone, you broke your femur, you go and you have the X-ray taken. It shows, this guy's got a broken bone, and no good. His bone is broken. Take it off. Take it away.
What if it was no good? You cut it out,
Right? So there's that. However, if you go back and you have another X-ray, and it shows that the X-ray is the femur is healed, then the conclusion is fused or whatever. Is somebody, you got a metal rod,
Knitted,
right?
is what?
re-knitted.
They come along.
What they call it?
Yeah, everybody knows that.
Fine, whatever.
So you now have a healed femur, right? So okay, I've got one bad X-ray. Oh yeah, his bone was broken, and I got two. Now I got
That's
two.
a bad bone.
Yeah, bad bone, bad to the bone, and now I got two X-rays. The second one's favorable. I'm gonna look at the first X-ray and see, what's broken, and I might say, well, how did it go from broken to healed? What is it at the bottom, now at the top? Yeah. What is it? Exploratory surgery, or what was it? And that's how I see presentation of these neuropsych evaluations to the FAA.
I retract my telling you off that your analogy would suck.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
It was
That one day just came.
adequate.
Yeah. So here's the thing. How are you getting a bad result in the first place? Now, again, there are going to be individuals who just have bad results because they legitimately have something wrong. Unfortunately. It's hard to know if you're one of those people after the first negative result. That being said, and I'm not trying to give you false hope, time and time again, though, we are seeing situations where people retest and then all of a sudden do much better. We submit and to the FAA and they say, okay, fine.
Wasn't there a concern for test effect?
There is an issue with practice effect. Where essentially your brain learns how to retest or knows how to take the test, right? And so any improvement is artificial improvement.
Are there different variations?
There's variations of testing. Yeah, there's variations of testing. There's some tests that are one and done.
My brain didn't see this guy.
Yeah. But the Wisconsin card sorting test, I think that's one that's like a...
Isn't that illegal in Vegas?
Good one.
Thank you.
So that being said, question is why is it you tested poorly? Now, I hate to say it,
Maybe you shouldn't.
I'm going to say it, but I'm going to make some type of inference. Okay, I don't have any hard evidence. I'm not an expert, but what I have heard, right, from these people that do the retesting, in some cases say, well, the person that did the initial testing didn't really know what they were doing. I've heard that before, right? To say, this person didn't know how to take the data, the hard data, and apply it to the pilot norms appropriately, right? So the result that you end up getting is not favorable. Now, why? It's not to say that these people are not appropriately trained and whatnot, but there are going to be people that have more experience doing the pilot norms, doing the pilot evaluations than other individuals who may have just started doing it. That's where I would say you need to be cautious with who you go to. If you're going to somebody that you found in the penny saver that's local just because they're there, and they had an office that you could go to close by, doesn't always mean that they're the person to go to. You want to kind of determine what experience do they have in doing FAA evaluations. And I would posit to say that it also matters what your rapport is with the neuropsychologist.
Keep in mind, all this stuff is going into your airman medical file. And if you do eventually rehabilitate those scores and you send that to the FAA and they continue to deny you, that you could ultimately petition the NTSB for review of that denial. And so these evaluations, while being in your airman medical file, will be documents that the administrative law judge will see during that petition. And so you want to make sure that you're getting the best possible data from people that are qualified to interpret that data, that have impeccable credentials, because you're going to then need them at that petition, at that hearing, to come and testify and substantiate the idea that based on your case history and appropriate qualified medical judgment, you don't have an aeromedically significant cognitive deficiency.
Could you educate me just so I know? I mean, if I live in Kennebunkport, for example, and I want to find somebody that I have a good rapport with, and I want to go have the testing done with, but they live in, I don't know, pick a place that's not Kennebunkport. I can travel across the country to see these people. I don't have to.
In Washington.
There you go. There's nothing saying that I had to see somebody within a general vicinity of me.
No, you can go to anybody you like. So I think that's part of the problem. So
that just opened up all new possibilities.
I think
for me.
just figuring out who you have, having a phone call with these people before you just show up at their office and say, well, this person sounds like they know what they're talking about. I have literally had cases where somebody has said, well, the person I went to, that was the first time they'd ever done an FAA evaluation, right? You could probably find that out on the phone and know that before you go, and then don't go, right? Find someone else, in my opinion. So I think rapport and just being comfortable in the environment is going to be, if you have someone that you just, hey, I'm just not going to get along with this person, or they're just jerks, they seem like a jerk or whatever, right? When you're spending all day doing testing with the individual, you might want to just think, how's this going to go?
It's like dating, like a daddy used to say. If it's not good during the dating, it ain't going to get any better when you get married.
Mm-hmm.
So if it ain't good during the initial consultation,
if I walk
it ain't gonna get any better during the evaluation.
If I walk into that buffet and I have to wait to be seated rather than immediately escorted to my table,
to your plate,
right? There's gonna be consequences.
They're gonna lose a lot of business.
So there's that. All right, that's problem number one. Problem number two is coming up after today's cockpit conundrum. Let's go ahead and get into it.
We haven't even gotten to that yet. Maybe we could do the conundrum and just answer it.
Sure. You ready?
Because it seems like we're getting long in the tooth here.
We're long. Nothing actually. Okay, you ready?
Yes.
I might have just given away some of the answer, but let me go ahead and give it to you. We're going to call this one the vanishing fuel slip. The vanishing fuel slip. Now, it's not overtly aeromedical, but it has some cognitive flair. You got to use your synapses. Captain Janet, the lady, is ferrying. She's not a fairy, but she's ferrying a light twin.
It's not Tinkerbell.
Correct. From Wichita, Kansas, not a Wichita lineman, woman, to Tampa, Florida for a client. She stops midway in Little Rock to refuel. Now that's the problem right there. I don't see Little Rock as midway, but nevertheless, here's what happens. Pay attention.
I am.
She starts the day with $1,000 in her petty cash envelope. She buys $300 of fuel in Wichita. Sorry, do we want to restart? Get out of here. You're going to do it on your own time.
Yeah, let's set this up a little differently.
She buys another $500 of fuel in Little Rock. Okay? She lands in Tampa, checks her envelope, and finds she has $200 left. Makes sense so far, right? But later, the client reimburses her only $700, claiming she only needed that much fuel for the trip. Now, Janet swears she spent $800, but she only got $700 back.
She didn't get a receipt.
And has $200 in cash. She's missing $100 somewhere in her mind.
She had $100.
Where did the $100? Where did the $100 go? Or did anything actually go missing at all?
Well, there is that time conversion from Central to Eastern.
Well,
You lose an hour and $100.
let's quickly retrace her step with clear logic. So, Captain Janet started with $1,000 in petty cash. She spent $800 on fuel.
Doesn't that seem like that should be a company expenditure, not a petty cash expenditure?
I don't know.
I don't
care.
know.
I don't know. That's
I don't
the
have
problem.
petty cash.
That leaves her with 200.
I only have serious cash.
and
Real cash.
and you're only petty.
I'm not petty.
That leaves her with $200 in cash.
So
Correct.
$300 and then $500.
Yeah, that's so she got
She made
$200.
fuel stops.
She got $200. Well, I don't know. She left Wichita with
When she left Wichita with $1,000.
fuel in Wichita.
The tanks weren't full when she left.
Now the client reimbursed her $700.
Sure.
Which means she got back $700, but she spent $800. So she personally lost $100 on the trip. That's the conundrum.
The petty cash envelope lost $100.
That $100 isn't missing. It's just the difference between what she actually spent and what the client was willing to cover. The trick is in the mental framing. When you combine the $700 reimbursement and the $200 remaining cash, your brain says, I should have $900. But
You wasted my time
As she already
and Pete's time for that.
already spent $800 to get to that point. You're mixing what she got back with what she has left without reconciling the full expense.
So the client's saying you shouldn't have cost the $800. It was only worth $700. I'm not giving you the $800. I don't get it. What's the point?
Well, the problem here is that you're mixing what she got back with what she has left.
I understand she had $200 left.
Yeah. So she got screwed.
$100, yeah. It's not a conundrum. It's just
It's straightforward. She's got the whole thing goes to show what could happen in a neuropsych evaluation. You got to be careful with the ins and the outs, the ups and the downs.
Well, yeah. I mean, it clearly said in the conundrum that they only thought it was worth $700.
Yeah.
There never was a loss if she just had receipts to substantiate the fuel.
It's the mental framing. Yeah, it's the mental framing.
Maybe if she were maybe a little bit more cognitively sufficient, she could say, well, I had a headwind and it burnt more fuel than we were anticipating, and therefore there was an increase in fuel cost.
I used Jim Bob's fuel instead of Jim.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
There's a little bit more, but better fuel product.
This airport, and they were, gouging me on the price. I don't know. Come up with something.
This was based off of Car Talk Puzzler. I'll quickly give you that. A man buys a used car for $5,000. He spends $1,000 fixing it up.
That sounds like me.
He then sells it for $6,000, breaking even. But later,
No,
when he
that's
check-
not me. I'm losing money.
but later when he checks his finances, he's missing $1. What happened?
He sold it for $59.99.
You know what? It doesn't provide the answer. All right. So
There's an advertisement fee.
what's another reason you could have a problem? You don't get well rested. Right? That's a big problem. Somebody doesn't do well on a neuropsych test, they'll almost inevitably tell me, oh, I had 2 hours of sleep the night before. That's a big mistake. You need to be well rested going into these things. And you need to have a general idea of what you're getting involved with. Some people say, oh, I thought this was going to take 30 minutes. I go in there and take a test. That's not how it works. Sometimes these neuropsych evaluations can be broken up into 2 days of testing. So you need to be careful and be aware of what to expect, because I think having the right frame of mind, being prepared with
Are there
you know,
any resources out there to be able
There's some
to?
resources. There's some resources. So the FAA actually provides a pretty good website as to what to expect generally. They used to provide a list of the actual tests that would be provided, but they took that down because people are practicing too much. There are some things you could do, like there's an app called Lumosity that a lot of people recommend as being something that's helpful in prepping for the test. Lumosity is a good one. There are cognitive rehabilitations you could do before retesting on a second evaluation. There are some entities that we recommend that we have found to be helpful for folks who are going for the second test. So there's definitely things that can be done. And I think the takeaway here is that it's not the end of the road if you have a first unsuccessful neuropsych evaluation. We've seen it time and time again. It's not that uncommon. The unfortunate thing is just lose more time, money, which you should be used to at this point in aviation. Unfortunately, it seems like it's not easy on the time and money, but it's definitely something if you can get favorable evaluation results on the back, and usually that will be good evidence that you can go into the FAA with. Well, you've squandered a good deal of time. I'm talking a significant amount of time listening to the Pilot Lawyer podcast, and
Certainly it feels like it was a significant amount of time.
It does.
And although, our insurance rates go up when they hear we're still driving.
Where's it going?
See, that's just what a fuzzy thought process can do, is just don't have one.
Yeah, sounds like the end of the podcast.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and get in the car, go get a buffet now. Goodbye.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.